What's up, everybody? Welcome back to episode 9 of the Pavement Group podcast. I'm joined by my co-host, like always, Brian Hess. What's up, Brian?
What's happening, man?
Not too much, man. We're going to recap 2020. It's kind of an odd year. I think we can say that. We want to talk about all the good that came out of it, though. Everybody's heard enough about all the bad that came out of 2020. We found some nuggets. We want to share them with you. We're glad you're here again for episode 9 of the Pavement Group podcast. So let's get going. All right, what's happening, everybody? Thank you for being here. We're kicking into winter. It's the end of our season, end of the paving season. It's been a hell of a season, for everybody. There's no denying that this has been a strange year, a weird one. It started back in March. Everybody, started to hear the news and what was going to happen. And Brian and I have been talking a lot lately about a retrospective of this year and sort of how we reacted to it and what we saw out there with other companies, some other vendors and that sort of thing. And there was no precedent. This wasn't something that anybody knew how to deal with. The last time something like this hit our country, it was 100 years ago. So there's nobody living in leadership positions that's running a business, running a family, whatever, that knew what to do, right? So it was a little bit of guesswork, but I think what we saw in the lessons that we learned were people that got creative, companies that had good leadership, that were able to calm the storm, calm the seas, take on the seas in a calm way. Really were the ones that did well this year, and we're pretty proud of where we ended up. I know Brian, as the CEO of the company, is extremely proud of how our team pulled together. A lot of the things that we did that we were able to accomplish. And we just want to talk today, sort of like, in the sitcoms, they have those retrospectives at the end where you look back and say, remember this, remember that. We're going to have a little bit of one of those remember this type of shows here and talk about all the good things that happened. And let's forget about all the negative that happened in 2020. So Brian, welcome back, my man. Love the sweater.
Thanks, brother. Appreciate it, man. It's good to be here as usual, especially on a day like today where we get to talk about so much that happened this year, from the very beginning and the ups and downs and the emotional roller coaster. And, both from our side of things, from the client side of things, personally, professionally, just kind of everything that 2020 brought to us and gaining some perspective on that, right? Being able to look back and, take the lessons away has really been a gift. I think it's been an incredible year for growth, right? People have been dealt interesting hands. And then when you learn to play those hands, man, there's a tremendous amount of education and knowledge and experience that's gained from a year like this. So I'm excited to dig into it.
Yeah. No, right on, man. So I'm going to share a quote here at the top from one of my favorite books. Like, I don't know if it's the most widely sold business book of all time, but it's going to be up there, Good to Great, by Jim Collins. And he's got a piece of that book where he writes about something he calls the Stockdale Paradox. So Admiral James Stockdale was a prisoner of war in Vietnam. He was kept in the tiger cages. He was there for, I think, a couple of years. I mean, it was maybe more than that. I should do my fact checking beforehand. We got to get that fact checker on the podcast. We need Eli sitting here so we can go, how long ago was that? But Admiral James Stockdale, and he's got a fascinating story. But basically it's summed up in the way he approached it was so different than the way so many of the other soldiers that didn't make it out of there approached it. It was all mental, no surprise. But the biggest thing was, he said that the people that didn't make it out were the optimists, the people that just said, you know what, we're going to be out by Christmas. And then Christmas came and Christmas went and they weren't out. Well, we're going to be out by Easter. Easter came, Easter went, they weren't. And they just eventually basically died of a broken heart, died of just having these wishes that never came true. He said, and this is one of the greatest quotes I've ever heard. I'm going to read it so I don't mess it up. But you must never confuse faith that you will prevail in the end, which you never can afford to lose, with the discipline to confront the most brutal facts of your current reality, whatever they may be. Now, I'm not going to say that when we were back in March 10th, March 14th, when the world was sort of shutting down and nobody knew what was happening, whether it was going to be 2 weeks to to bend the curve or whatever it was going to be. It turned into, now here we are 9 months into it, and vaccines are just starting to get rolling, and hopefully we're going to have some normalcy or whatever. But nobody knew. All you could control is what was right in front of you, right, Brian? All you can control is what you could control. And in that, what that says to me right there was, if you face the brutal facts, and that's what good leaders did, and that's what, people that were being honest with themselves did, said, I don't know. I'm not going to make things up and make things worse. I'm certainly not going to lie to myself and pretend like this is going to be over tomorrow and it's going to be an easy road. But let's look at what's right in front of us, and what can we do? What can we control? And what comes to mind first for you, Brian, us as a company, the Pavement Group, of some of those things back in, the beginning of COVID and Corona, and the early 2020 year? What comes to mind for you for some of the things that we did?
Yeah, I think I remember the day, man, when I was like, kind of unsure of what was going on. Everybody's a little uncertain about, how serious is this? Is it going to last? Is it not going to last? What's going to happen here? And I can't remember which sports it was, but I remember March Madness and one or two other sporting seasons.
The NBA.
Yeah, being canceled all in the same day or 2-day period. And I was like, man, this is serious. Like what are we about to embark on? And I remember I just said it to you before we came on the air here. I remember reading a quote and sharing it with our team and saying, the quote was, there's two different types of soldiers. There's soldiers that shoot well at the range, and there's soldiers that shoot well while they're being shot at. And I remember thinking to myself, like, we're going to have to all learn how to be the second, because, we're going to go through some stuff this year. And, I knew that it was togetherness that was going to be able to get us through it. Right. And, just literally that quote, which I had never heard before today when you shared it with me, but that quote kind of defines it. It's like, you take one day at a time. You don't let your emotions get the best of you. You don't let the things that you hear on the news or anywhere else, you don't let those things just, completely influence your decisions. You take what's right in front of you, right? You take those things that you can handle. And, for us, we had a significant amount of work that needed to be done that was, already in progress. And I remember thinking to myself, like, the most important thing that we can do as a company right now to serve our customers and to serve ourselves is to make sure that all of this gets done, right? Like, let's execute at the highest level to make sure that, number one, we're staying compliant to all the things that are happening, because, we had people in different states and different places, and, different states were shutting things down, and some states were essential, some states weren't. And, really, we were forced to watch the news to kind of track that stuff, right? And that,
I remember the map we had going in April and May, what you could do where, and trying to chase that work as opposed to places where we couldn't work.
Yeah, and trying to keep other contractors up to speed with what was going on in their own states, right? And so we did. We came together as a team, and that's what we discussed. And the thing that I remember the most, man, is we had 9:00 a.m. Eastern time. We had a call with our entire team every single morning, and it's the thing that I go back to all the time. I say to everybody, like, I believe those calls got us through, because there were days that we didn't have a whole lot to talk about. Nothing changed from the day before, but it brought us together as a team, as a family, and we were able to kind of work through not just the work stuff, but just all the crazy emotions and concern and things that we had going on in our personal lives. Everybody has kids. The kids are going to school, not going to school, shut down, not shut down. We got people, now working from home that weren't working from home, or vice versa. Just everything kind of shifting. And that consistency of that everyday call, just knowing that, you're going to jump on there and there's going to be some sense of normalcy, was huge. And so we did just take it one day at a time and try to execute the very best that we could given the circumstances. And adapting on the technology side, a lot of companies were going through kind of a shift in technology. We were already set up for that, right? Like, we already had a lot of the things, and we're doing business that way already. So we had an advantage in that sense. But I really believe, and I think this is a lesson for anytime you go through something as a company, not just when a global pandemic happens, but you go through something as a company, that rhythm that you create in your day and in your week, it cascades all the way through to people's personal lives, right? You create that rhythm, that sense of normalcy. And next thing you know, people are just focused on what's in front of them, right? And they
Right.
like that sense of not having to listen to everything that's on the news. I remember halfway through the year when things were, really starting to stabilize and get back to some sense of normal, right? Probably around July. And, we were on pace to have a really good year. And I was having some of those conversations or doing podcast interviews, and, people were like, man, that's incredible that you guys are having such a good year. And I said this kind of jokingly, but it fits. I said, they said there's a pandemic and a recession going on. And I just said, yeah, we just decided not to participate.
Right.
And
absolutely.
I think that's a true statement. And I just say that because it's the truth. Like, I didn't feel like we were in the middle of what everyone else was kind of feeling. And I think that,
right.
As a team, we created that together. And that is, I think that's the biggest lesson that I would take away, is that rhythm, that consistency that you create in your business. It to me, that'll be a focus for the rest of my life, of creating that rhythm, regardless of the circumstances outside the business, because that rhythm is what creates long-term success.
Yeah, right on, man. Really well said. I think that the safe space that was created here as well for all of us that work at the Pavement Group, I don't know if it was unique. I feel like it was unique in talking to other people and in our industry and other business sectors and stuff, but having that place to plug into and shut off all, social media is so unnatural to begin with. But you've got an election that's so tumultuous, that's building on top of this pandemic, and it feels like there's no direction or leadership. I certainly don't want to get political on this show, but there were so many things to worry about. So you came in to work, and like you talked about, we kept our rhythm of that 9:00 call, and you can unplug, and you didn't have to worry about getting all your information from there. Hey, we got plenty to do here. Thankfully, we got plenty to keep everybody busy and keep your mind off that stuff, and really kind of block it out, right? Because when you're scrolling through social media in a year like this, with all the stuff that's going on, it's you're just negative. It's just hitting you. It destroys you. So when you've got a safe place, I think, to plug into and to be part of it, and it really, really strengthened our team. What would you say? I know you're talking earlier too about our customers and how fortunate we are that we had some customers that just happened to be busy because they're great companies, but they also were open. They were essential. They, working for Amazon and some other companies like that. But you talked a little bit about how grateful you are about the open lines of communication that we had with a lot of our customers that helped us navigate and stay ahead and strategize and stuff. Talk a little bit about that, if you don't mind, Brian.
Yeah, I think, from the very beginning, man, it was, again, you defined it perfectly. It's like, that kind of place that we went to every day as a team, it created a lot of good ideas of how to navigate this thing, right? Because we weren't plugged into the chaos. We were plugged into each other, and we were genuinely just trying to figure it out together. And some of what we figured out was, that communication was going to be what got us through. And, that started with us just reaching out to our customers and just saying, hey, how are you doing? And most of those initial conversations were, oh man, I know I owe you an answer on this job or whatever. And we're like, no, man, genuinely, like, we understand what's going on. We're just, kind of calling to check in and see how everything's going and see how you're holding up. If there's anything we can do to simplify, what you have to navigate as our customers. And like you said, man, we're blessed to have customers that every one of them, responded to everything that we ever, called or emailed or anything. And we're always trying to keep us, on top of how things were going on their end, because it was just as uncertain. It was just as crazy on their side.
It's personal. You forget about that. In business, these are customers we've been working with. I got a lot of my customers that I've had for a decade plus. They're friends. They're people you care about. And when you hear the uncertainty in their voice, and they're not sure where their company's heading or where their job's going to be or whatever, that's a whole different level than just making a call to a customer, right?
Yeah, and that's the truth, man. And you get to know their families and their kids, and we're connected to a lot of times on social media, so you get to know people, at a whole new level. And when that stuff happens, I think that tragedy and chaos and these things that happen, sometimes they bring gifts to the surface that you didn't expect. And I think in some cases that's what this year did, right? It redefined a lot of relationships, because man, you just have a different appreciation for people when they genuinely care, and they genuinely want your company to do well as it can given the circumstances. And so that was the case for us. It was like, again, day by day, how do we do it? But how do we do it with our customers, right? How do we solve some of the problems that have now bubbled up as a result of this, because they are now faced with less resources and a constantly changing budget that they didn't plan for. Whatever their plan was went out the window as soon as all this happened. And so how do we play that role, of solving some of those problems that they are now faced with, of basically wiping the slate clean and starting over in the middle of the year? Right. They have no idea how to navigate that either. And they're trying to figure it out. And they're trying to figure it out in paving and roofing and landscaping and, every different type of project and trade that they deal with. They're trying to solve those problems. And so, our goal as a company was to help them solve the problem when it came to parking lots, or when it came to their roads, or when it came to anything pavement related. We wanted to be the company that was there trying to go above and beyond to solve those problems. And, that's exactly what we did. We doubled down on trying to be there as a resource, and it worked out great, through the long term of the season. There were points that I now look back and think like, man, in April, how did we stay calm, right? Because it was not a situation where we were facing normal circumstances. It was like, man, what are we going to do?
Right. What's the choice, though? What's the other choice?
As the season went on, what we did just worked out great, right? It was just be there for people, be there for each other, try to navigate it together the best that we can. And the next thing you're coming out the other side of this again with stronger customer relationships, with, more work coming for 2021, just a better understanding of our customers, from every angle, personally, professionally, the way that things work in their companies. Cause a lot of times, we could be part of helping them solve that problem going into the future. So now we got to start all over again. How do we solve this? And if we could be part of that, then it's a huge win-win for everybody.
You nailed it. As usual, you nailed it. One thing I think about too is the assessments. We did a lot of assessments for customers, and they were like, I don't know if I'm going to have the budget to do that. I don't know if we're going to get these projects in. The unknown, especially early in this year, and we were like, just let us do it. We get some free time. You know what I mean? It'll keep the team busy. It gets us ahead, and then we'll start building out that portfolio picture that we've been talking about here for however long, and get way ahead of it. So I think utilizing the time, that's just one thing. The upgrades we made in technology, adding on to our team, the systems and the processes and the training pieces that we put together and all that sort of stuff too, being able to take advantage of that. But so much of that was customer feedback that we got, right? We spent some great time on Zoom calls with the property management team. I don't want to throw out a bunch of names of companies, but one property management team we get on 4 or 5 times, helped us to refine our assessment system. They were wonderful. And it was really like back in April, May, June, everybody was sitting home waiting to see what was going to happen. So I think it was nice for everyone to have a chance to plug in and feel a little bit normal, talk about normal day-to-day business things. And it was it was nice. So I think you killed it right there with what you said about our customers and the partnerships and how fortunate we are.
Yeah, and I think, to tag on to the assessment thing, one of the things that those customers that we had done portfolio assessments for prior to all of this, it made it 10 times easier for us to and them to adjust their budgets because they had all the facts and data needed, right? We knew what issues existed on their parking lots, what projects they had, how we could shift those around. And it's basically like, man, let's just circle the wagons here and figure out how to move forward in a better way. Obviously, we're not going to do all this stuff. Let's figure out what we can do, what projects can still fit into the budget, and then let's push everything else forward. It makes for a very organized and easy transition into the shift that needed to happen. And, it's through that process, man, that you don't even recognize the value that's there until you're put in a situation like this where you say, man, like, what would we have done? We'd have had to start from scratch and do all this over again, as opposed to having all the facts and data and property information and just kind of be able to sit in front of our computers, like you said, when everybody was sitting around anyway, and just re-engineer the whole plan with a couple clicks of a button, and then you're off to the races. So simplifying that, it created visibility into something we knew was valuable, but now we believe is even more valuable than we did before.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Right on. All right. I'll put you on the spot. What is your favorite thing that we did as a company in 2020?
I can't give you one. I got to give you two. Number one is that we went against the grain when everybody stopped spending money on marketing and advertising, things like that. We leaned into that. We re-engineered a lot of our online presence, our digital everything, kind of got a new, fresh look. And that was a big decision, right? Like when a lot of companies were contracting, we were trying to expand. And the second part is just implementing all of the technology that we, were slowly implementing. Again, we leaned in and made investments when other companies were, probably contracting, and that worked out tremendously, right? When we got to the back half of the year, we had all of that stuff implemented and rolling. And now going into 2021, not only did it help us in the back half of 2020, but going into 2021, we have, massive scalability that we wouldn't have had if all of this didn't happen.
Right on. Yeah, right on. And it takes a hell of a team. It takes a lot of trust from ownership and from leadership in that team. And it takes a hell of a team to deliver that, to put that together, during a time like this, for sure.
Yeah, scary, man. When you're sitting there,
it's super scary.
But and that is that's the importance of having people around you that you believe in and that you trust. From every angle, all of us on the team look around and say, man, I can tell you this: we're not going to lose. So let's double down and do this, because when we come out the back end of this thing, we're going to be better for having spent that time. As opposed to sitting around and worrying. Let's go to work. Let's put in the things that we know need to happen anyway. This is the perfect opportunity to do it, but it doesn't make it any less scary when you're going through it and making those investments and writing those checks, hoping that, everything on the back end comes out the way that you think it will.
Yeah. Yeah. Right on, man. Awesome. Well, this was a good recap, I think. And, it's not to sit here and say, oh, we had a great year. I don't know what everybody's all upset about. That's a crazy year. This was nuts. This was hard. It was something I hope never, ever happens again. And I know there's a lot of people that had it a lot worse than we did. And God bless them. I think we were fortunate to have the team we had and to take the approach that we had. We didn't hit the revenue numbers we wanted to, but we did okay, right? And we achieved a lot of things. It was because of keeping a positive mindset and people, keeping the right people around us and having great clients and just powering through, man. So I'm kind of proud to be where we're at here at the end of 2020.
Yeah, agreed, man. And for all those people that had challenging years, man, thoughts and prayers with everybody. And if there's anything that we can do to help anybody or have conversations or provide advice or guidance in any way that anybody out there that's listening thinks that we can provide any level of value, we are always here and available to try and do that. Not to say we have all the answers, because we certainly make our fair share of mistakes too. But if there's any way that, you know, we can pay it forward for anybody and provide anything, by all means, reach out any way that you can to get in contact with us, and we're here to help. So
awesome. All right, man. Well, as always, I'm grateful for your time. This was another fun one. Episode 9 in the can. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Episode 10. This isn't the last episode of the year. We're going to be putting one more out before the end of the year, but we wanted to do a little retrospective. Say thank you to everybody. Happy holidays. Happy New Year coming up. I know everybody's looking forward to 2021 for a lot of reasons. Really, just one reason, because it's not 2020. But it's gonna be a good one. And thank you for joining us, guys. We'll see you next time. The Pavement Group Podcast. Take care.
Appreciate it, guys.